Coming up, how Stalin is portrayed in the Russian papers 70 years after the official denunciation of his cult of personality. Plus, a look at the state of the Russian economy. But first, there are some newspapers in Russia that paint a rosy, overwhelmingly positive picture of where this country is heading. The government paper, Rossiyskaya Gazeta, for example, which this week featured Vladimir Putin praising the cutting-edge technology of Russian scientists and talking of colossal prospects for a bioeconomy. Vedomosti reporting that Russia's government will continue to encourage investment and productivity, and Komsomolskaya Pravda, well, less byline, more feline, looking ahead to Cat Day on March the 1st by promoting kitten mittens and a cat collar that lights up when the pet purrs. But the prospects are less bright for Russia's economy, and some Russian newspapers make no secret of that. Today, Nezavisima Gazeta reports that the 2026 federal budget is based on a price of $59 per barrel of oil, Urals, but in reality, Russian oil fell short of this level for almost the whole of last year. In January 2026, Urals cost only $41 per barrel. Earlier this week, the paper reported that Russians are worried first and foremost by the high cost of living, rising food prices, rising communal tariffs and high inflation. Problems relating to the special military operation in Ukraine are also among those causing most concern, according to sociologists from the Institute of Socio-Political Research of the Russian Academy of Sciences. According to the latest polling, a majority of Russians are extremely concerned by rising food prices, 79%, rising communal and utility tariffs, 77%, the high cost of living, 74%, high inflation, 71%, the special military operation in Ukraine, 62%. Same paper, but a different concern in this editorial: growing repression. It's entitled "On the Possible Blocking of the Telegram Messenger app and the Criminalisation of Daily Practices." The punitive machine is guided by its own logic. It can only be stopped by a decision from above. The machine of persecution and punishment, launched a few years ago, works according to its own logic and hardware. For those who handle it, it is vital to constantly demonstrate their importance and relevance. It's a paradox, but fact. In order to prove effectiveness, it is necessary to identify crimes and criminals, not state that there are almost no crimes, that is, that the system has worked. Each new ban, new law, each expansion of the list of foreign agents, extremists and terrorists, all of this provides the staff of the punitive machine with new algorithms from which it is easy to choose. At the same time, everything that a few years ago, even a few months ago, was considered not just legal but natural is being criminalised. Posting photos on a social network that is now banned, sharing a profile, no one could have thought about whether they were helping terrorists. Voice calls via foreign messenger apps were an everyday and extremely convenient practice. The same can be said of other areas of life. 5 years ago, no one censored, for example, the repertoire of street musicians. Now they risk 15 days behind bars, and then another 15 if they sing songs by banned artists written long before 2022 and performed by thousands of people, thousands of times, without any consequences. The risk of coming into contact with the punitive system, of having a negative, crippling experience, is now across the board. This spoils the lives of people without criminal intentions, transforms the public psyche, and the authorities should not hide from this problem and prospects behind templates like "the law is the law" and "we have an independent judiciary." When Nezavisima Gazeta talks about the machine of persecution and punishment, it is referring to today's Russia. But what about the machine of terror in Russia's past, the great terror of Joseph Stalin? 70 years ago this week, on the 25th of February 1956, Nikita Khrushchev delivered his so-called secret speech to delegates of the 20th Congress of the Soviet Communist Party, in which he denounced Stalin's cult of personality and crimes against his own people. Komsomolskaya Pravda calls the speech the bomb that destroyed the Stalin myth, a watershed moment in the country's history. But under Vladimir Putin, Stalin has undergone something of a rehabilitation. There's less discussion about the Gulag, the purges, the arrest and execution of innocent citizens, and more talk about Stalin, the victorious wartime leader. Komsomolskaya Pravda sums up how President Putin sees Stalin. The cult of personality was harmful, but Stalin brought victory in World War II and industrialization. The secret speech was used by the West as a tool to break up the USSR. Between 2023 and 26, Putin talked about repressions having been criminal, with millions of victims, but about how without them, the USSR might not have held out. With Khrushchev, discipline started to fall apart. And in an interview to Oliver Stone, Putin once said, "Excessive demonization of Stalin is one of the tools for attacking the Soviet Union and Russia to show that today's Russia displays the birthmarks of Stalinism. We all have some birthmarks of some sort. So what?" The Rossiyskaya Gazeta has a photo of the Stalin statue that reappeared in the Moscow metro last year. Judging by this article, in Vladimir Putin's Russia, the official position on Stalin is that, yes, he was bad, but there always seems to be a but. So veteran politician Vladimir Lukin writes, "Of course he left a mark on our history with his monstrous personality. There were many inhuman features to him, but let's not forget the French Revolution with all of its repressions." Writer Alexei Varlamov, "Only dictatorship could provide a way out of Russia's time of troubles in 1917. There was no other way to save the state. We may not like that, but people at the time were conscious of that. Of course he committed great evil, and it would have been better if he hadn't. But that's like saying it would be better if there was no war, no terror, no evil, no sickness, no epidemics, no cataclysms, no earthquakes. Unfortunately, real life is different." Film director Alexei German Jr. "We cannot deny that mistakes were made, but on the other hand, Stalin was extremely clever and capable of changing. Yes, victory in World War II came at a huge human cost, but it was victory. And let's not forget the nuclear project. If the country didn't have the atom bomb, perhaps there would have been no USSR, none of us. So for me, Stalin is a giant, a man of mistakes and great achievements." Arguments and Facts highlights another anniversary. 40 years ago, on the 25th of February 1986, on the opening day of the 27th Congress of the Soviet Communist Party, Mikhail Gorbachev announced his policy of Glasnost in the USSR. Less than 6 years later, there was still Glasnost, but no USSR. Gorbachev miscalculated, believing that freedom of speech would strengthen his power instead of destroying it.